What do you think LSU's record's going to be this year? Because I think very highly of LSU, but I want to remind you something. I want to remind you of how crazy this world we live in is. Last year's hater has become this year's hyper. There are people out there. If you look at the Venn diagram, okay, in the overlap area, there are people in that overlap area that were telling me Brian Kelly's not going to amount to anything in this conference, who are now telling me he's going to win the West and possibly win the SEC this year. Like, how do you people sleep at night? I sleep at night because I never said such foolish things. So I'm free to pick them to win the West if I want to. We're not going to do that until maybe Thursday night, maybe Sunday night, but we will do that in the next two shows. But I think the best case for LSU this year is 11-1. As much as I was hyping them up there, I think the aggregate of their schedule, the totality of their schedule is such that I don't think there's an undefeated card in the deck. They don't need to go undefeated. Even if their one loss was to Bama and Bama went undefeated, LSU's probably in the playoff if they go 11-1. This would involve them being proven and dynamic at quarterback, which they are. It would involve beneath Malik Neighbors, guys like Brian Thomas, some of those other receivers just slotting in perfectly, and them having a really, really dynamite wide receiver stable. Their defensive line, linebacker core has the potential to be elite. They're really deep there. Just stay healthy and perform as you can. They're just that good. In the best case of scenarios, they're just that good. There's some teams every year. The 2019 LSU team, I remember. I'm not comparing the two. Don't get me wrong. I remember in 2019, there were people who looked at that team in the preseason, and they said, 3 losses maybe? And then week over week, you just realize, no, they're just better than I thought they were. This happens every year. It's not like there were secret players or anything. It's just that collection of players is better than you thought they'd be. Maybe LSU's a little bit better than even you think they'll be, and people already think they're going to be pretty good. Well, 11-1 would be really good. The worst case for LSU this year is 7-5, and that involves the secondary biting them. So they've already had discipline issues in the secondary with Denver Harris. If they just have depth issues there, or if those players just aren't as good as you hope they are, you got some teams on the schedule that can burn you, and burn you badly. And if you have to get into track meets and you have to have Jaden Daniels playing catch-up, in a pinball kind of game, I don't think that's his strong suit. And so that could happen. I think your front seven could wear down if that's the case, because you can't get off the field because your secondary continues to give up third and longs after third and longs. And if you're unable to run the ball effectively as well, then that leads to that defensive front seven being on the field a whole lot longer than they should. So 7-5 is the worst case. But the most likely record for LSU, I think, is 10-2. I think they're going to be really good again this year. That's a double-digit win season for LSU. It's the same thing I said with the worst case, but I think if you aggregate their schedule together, it is very tough. It's just tough not to lose some games. It's hard. It doesn't matter how good you are. The league they play in, the division they play in, very, very difficult. So the game-wrecking potential they have in their defensive front is the kind of thing that, even if you're struggling offensively, could win games for you. And there's just random weeks. Like you go, I want you to look at the 3-game stretch. It's not the one you think. They play at Mississippi State, Arkansas, and then at Ole Miss, and then Missouri. So they go at Missouri 10-7. That is October 7th. That's their third road game in 4 weeks. Georgia went up there last year and almost got beat. Just picture yourself in an unexpected dogfight at Missouri. You cannot move the ball to save your life for whatever reason, and it's Harold Perkins, and it's Mason Smith, and it's those guys just blowing up the Missouri front, forcing 3 turnovers, and you win the game 23-16, and only 10 of the points were offensive or something like that. I know that fraction doesn't make sense, but that's the kind of thing they can do with their front. And also, if they go 10-2, it probably means we're looking and we're seeing separation. You got Georgia, probably. I would think Bama's a part of this, but you would have LSU as a part of it, instead of looking at Georgia maybe by themselves and then everyone else a tier below. If you're going 10-2 or better with that schedule, you have separated yourself a little bit. So I think the most likely record, I think it's 10-2, which would also be an over there. And if they're 10-2, I know we've never had it happen. I know we have not had a 2-loss team in the playoffs. LSU's got the 5th best odds to win the national title right now. Never say never. Never say never.